Hello and welcome to tonight's CLNS Media Patriots Roundtable. I'm your host, Nick Qualley, sitting here with Mike Molyneux and with Marv Azan. And guys, no Patriots game this week. I was worried that we were going to have to record again on Tuesday because they tried to move the game to Monday. Patriots Broncos. Obviously, that ended up getting moved again. So, we have some other news around the NFL to talk about, at least in this segment. The Chiefs, they lost. At home too, which is interesting to note because they have been dominant at home. They didn't just lose; they lost at home to the Las Vegas Raiders. Derek Carr, Josh Jacobs, 40-32. So, guys, this is now 2 weeks in a row that the Chiefs haven't looked like the Kansas City Chiefs. This doesn't look like the same, or rather, they didn't roll over teams that you would think that they might roll over, especially with the Patriots with Brian Hoyer. So they still looked really good, don't get me wrong. But the games were closer than anticipated, especially the Patriots game with Brian Hoyer, quarterback. So, guys, the question is, are the Chiefs still the most feared team in the AFC? Are they still at the top? Realistically, we can go power rankings here. Are the Chiefs still your number one by far team in the AFC? Or after these last 2 weeks, are we starting to see a little weakened armor here? Marv, let's start with you. What do you think?
Chiefs are still the most feared team in the AFC due to the fact that they have the most feared player in Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes is still under center. Yes, the Chiefs haven't looked great, Nick. You explained it. You know, the Patriots game. Patriots had a great design for Patrick Mahomes in that offense, which they have been doing for the past couple years now. And then the Las Vegas Raiders, they go out and they score 40 on the Chiefs and come back in that game as well. So yes, there's a chink in the armor, but let's not act like this Kansas City Chiefs was just not on a 13-game winning streak. Like, this is still the top team in the AFC. You saw what happened when they went up against the Baltimore Ravens, who I thought had the best roster and I think could have been the number one in the AFC. When the Chiefs came out to play, they destroyed the Ravens. And Ravens are not a bad team by any means. We just saw what they did to the Washington football
Right,
team.
and you would say the Ravens are like the number two, right?
Right. I would say the Ravens are the number two, and they're not close to number one. Kansas City proved that Lamar Jackson is not ready to take that step mano a mano with Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes, that guy, and as long as he's under center, he should be favored in every single game that they play this season because of him. They still got Travis Kelce. They still got Tyreek Hill. They got Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They have all the weapons they need offensively to be in a shootout. Is things rough right now for them? You know, almost losing to Brian Hoyer and then losing to Derek Carr. Yeah, things might be a little rough, but that's the NFL season and a weird season that we are having right now. But I still think that the Kansas City Chiefs are the top dogs. And even with the little struggles that we're seeing, we shouldn't be hitting no panic button because they lost to a divisional team.
Right. Something else, though, I think that is worth noting. We mentioned the Patriots game with Brian Hoyer and then Jarrett Stidham. If the Patriots, I think this is fair to say, if the Patriots have Cam Newton, they win that football game.
Yep.
I think
sure.
I think we can assume that. So it might even be a totally different tune now because it wouldn't just be, okay, they beat the Patriots and then they lost to the Raiders. It would be they've now lost twice in a row. So, Mike, what do you think? What are your thoughts on the Chiefs right now? Are they still the most feared team in the AFC? And if they are, what's that gap between, we just talked about the Ravens being the number two. What's that gap between number two and number one? Has it shrunk a little bit for you?
So coming into the season, when I looked at the AFC, I definitely held the Chiefs and the Ravens at a high regard. It was them two, and then I said, in my opinion, everybody else. Obviously, Chiefs number one, Ravens number two, and then I was like, okay, everybody else is kind of jumbled up in between there. Then they played each other, and we saw, pretty much everything with that Marv was saying. Chiefs had their way with Baltimore. It looked like, Baltimore and Lamar Jackson, they have ways to go before they're close to the Kansas City Chiefs level. So now I have the Chiefs And then I kind of have everybody else. I still have Baltimore at that number 2 spot, but clearly, the gap is there between Baltimore and Kansas City. With that being said, yeah, we all figured they'd probably dominate the Patriots when they played each other. I definitely saw possibly a blowout happening, especially without having Cam Newton under center. I saw a blowout, and that wasn't the case. And then they played, the Raiders, and the Raiders dropped 40 in Arrowhead. Like, it's pretty surprising. The thing about Kansas City is their defense is never going to win them games. Their defense will not be, the topic of conversation after a game is played. You'll never look at a Chiefs game and say, wow, their defense really, had held an opponent in check or whatnot. Like, that's never going to be the talk. The talk is always, wow, what did Patrick Mahomes and that offense do today? And, pretty much similar to Marv said, as long as Patrick Mahomes is back there throwing that ball, they're most likely to put numbers up on the board. He has his weapons. I think Mahomes can only get better. He's still pretty young. He can only get better. The offense has improved a little bit now that you have this rookie running back who seems to be, a solid a back that they found in the draft. Kansas City Chiefs is a team to fear no matter what. I know they'll struggle. Teams struggle some weeks. It happens. But at the end of the day, I don't think anybody around the league is looking at these past 2 weeks and saying, well, Kansas City's not the team they thought we thought they were, or Kansas City. Nah, Kansas City will be there in the end. I personally feel as if Kansas City, once again, will be representing the AFC in the Super Bowl. And I know that's far off from now. A lot could happen. But, if I had to say a pick, Kansas City's still the team that I picked that's the most dominant in the AFC.
Yeah, and I was just trying to find NFL.com has just changed the way they look. So I was trying to find who was like where the Chiefs defense was ranked in the entire NFL. Can't find that out right now. Not as easy as it used to be. But we are Patriots fans. This is a Patriots-centric show. We have talked about this time and time again with the Patriots, especially when the Patriots are on that insane run over these past 20 years. When they lose a game or two, we slap the panic button. Is this team as good as we thought they were? Blah, blah, blah. We're essentially doing the same thing right now with the Kansas City Chiefs. The Chiefs lost to the Raiders, sure. They still put up 32 points. And even with, I think it was 6 minutes left, the Chiefs had a pretty heavy, the Raiders had a pretty heavy lead. A lot of people probably look at that score and be like, okay, this game's over. The Raiders got the win. The Chiefs are so good, especially offensively. They have a freak at quarterback in Patrick Mahomes. They are so good offensively. I had that game to me was not over until that clock hit 0. The Chiefs always have a chance to come back. They're still number 1. Even if they did lose to the Patriots 2 weeks ago, even if they lost, even if they did actually lose to the Patriots 2 weeks ago, even though they lost to the Raiders this week, they had 2 losses in a row. They're still the number 1 team. We saw what they did to the Baltimore Ravens that like you guys both talked about. And that gap is still there. They're still clearly the number 1 team. But I think we have seen now the Patriots at least have a game plan against them. The Patriots at least have a game plan against that offense. So bringing that back to the Patriots, we know that they're beatable. This isn't this insane, unbeatable team that they looked like recently. They're a beatable team, and we now know that. So if anything, we know that the Patriots, if they get him in the postseason, we should not just write the Patriots off. We shouldn't write anybody off because there's a blueprint out there to shut them down. There's a blueprint out there to at least slow down that offense and not let them be as dominant as they have been in the past.